Sleeping in a truck cab when the engine dies should be a death sentence within hours. Your body temperature drops, the steel walls around you turn into an icebox. Yet hundreds of thousands of truck drivers survive entire winters sleeping in unheated cabs across the coldest highways in America. No central heating, no insulated walls, just a metal box on wheels in -20. What do long-haul truckers know about surviving the cold that the rest of us don't? Here's the thing about sleeping in a truck cab during winter. That sleeper berth behind your seat, it's basically a refrigerator with a mattress. The walls are thin sheet metal, the floor is steel, and the ceiling might as well be a slab of ice. Every surface in that cab is designed to move freight, not keep a human being alive at 3 a.m. in North Dakota. A truck cab loses heat roughly 4 times faster than your bedroom at home. Your body pumps out 80 to 100 watts of heat all night long, and every single watt gets sucked straight through those metal walls into the frozen air outside. So what do experienced drivers do? They build what's called a cab cocoon. They start with reflective windshield covers, not those flimsy sunshades from the gas station. We're talking heavy-duty thermal covers that snap onto the inside of the windshield and side windows. These reflect up to 97% of your body heat back into the cab instead of letting it bleed through the glass. Because here's the part most rookies don't realize. About 60% of your cab's heat loss happens through the windows. Block the glass and you've just changed the entire math of survival. Some veteran drivers take it further. They cut rigid foam insulation boards to fit every window in the sleeper. Custom-shaped, wedged in tight, sealed with weather stripping. Their cab isn't a cab anymore, it's a micro cabin, and the temperature difference is startling. We're talking 15 to 20 degrees warmer inside with zero heat running. Not bad for $30 worth of foam from Home Depot. But here's where it gets tricky. A sealed cab with a sleeping trucker becomes a moisture factory. One driver breathing all night produces roughly 1 pint of water vapor. By morning, every surface is wet. The windows fog over from the inside, your sleeping bag feels damp, your bunk liner is soaked, and wet insulation loses up to 40% of its ability to keep you warm. So that expensive sleeping setup you invested in, it's now working at 60% capacity while it's -10 outside. Experienced drivers solved this years ago. They crock the overhead vent exactly a 1/4 inch. Sounds insane, right? Letting cold air in to stay warm, but it creates just enough airflow to carry moisture out without dumping your heat. Physics is weird like that. Others keep dampered containers tucked behind the bunk. Those little moisture absorbers designed for RV closets work perfectly in a sleeper cab. Not glamorous, but waking up dry instead of soggy, that's a luxury out here. Now let's talk about the real survival weapon, and it's probably sitting in your truck stop receipt pile right now. Diesel-fired bunk heaters, S-Bar and Webasto. If you're a trucker, you already know these names like you know your own kids. These units burn a tiny amount of diesel, about 1/10 of a gallon per hour, to pump warm air directly into the sleeper. No engine running, no idling, no $70 idle tickets from the cops. But here's what most people outside trucking don't realize. These heaters fail. They fail a lot, and they always fail on the worst possible night. One driver told me his Webasto quit at 2 a.m. during a January shutdown in Wyoming. Wind chill was -35. The nearest truck stop was 40 miles away. Road closed. No help coming. That's when everything else on this list stops being optional and starts being the difference between waking up and not waking up. So what do veteran drivers keep as backup? Heated blankets that run off the truck's battery. Specifically, 12-volt blankets designed for sleeper cabs. These pull about 4 to 5 amps, which is less power than your headlights use. A fully charged truck battery can run one for 8 to 10 hours without killing the starting power. Some drivers keep 2, one underneath as a heated mattress pad, one on top as a blanket. You're basically building a warm sandwich with yourself as the filling. At about $45 each, that's a $90 insurance policy against hypothermia. Pretty reasonable when the alternative is a hospital visit for frostbite that'll cost you your CDL medical card. But here's the thing about cold. It doesn't hit hardest at midnight. It waits. The absolute coldest moment happens between 3 and 4 a.m. Your core body temperature drops to its lowest point during those hours. Metabolism slows, and if your heater died 2 hours ago and you're sleeping through it, this is when hypothermia stops being a word in a safety manual and starts being a real emergency. Experienced drivers set alarms. Sounds ridiculous, right? Waking yourself up at 3 a.m. to check your situation? But it works. They call it the dead man's check. You wake up, assess how cold you are, and decide whether to fire up the main engine for 15 minutes. That quick blast of heat from the truck's HVAC system resets your cab temperature through the danger window and carries you to sunrise. Running a diesel engine for 15 minutes burns roughly half a gallon. At current diesel prices, that's about $2. For someone who gets paid by the mile and earns nothing sitting still, every dollar matters. But $2 beats losing 3 toes to frostbite. The math is simple, even at 3 a.m. Now here's where old school truckers get clever, and I mean decades of road wisdom clever. Hot water bottles. Yeah, those rubber things that look like they belong in a 1940s hospital. Long-haul drivers have been using these since before bunk heaters existed. You fill one up with near boiling water from the truck stop coffee machine. Takes 30 seconds, costs nothing if you bought a coffee.
And that bottle releases slow, steady heat for 4 to 6 hours. Placement matters more than you'd think. Most rookies shove it by their feet. Feels nice, totally inefficient. Veterans place it against their core, stomach, inner thighs, anywhere near major blood vessels. Your circulatory system picks up that warmth and distributes it everywhere. You've basically turned a rubber bottle into a full-body heating system. Some old-timers run a relay, 2 bottles. When the first one cools around 2 a.m., they swap it for the backup that's been wrapped in a towel under the bunk retaining heat. By morning, you've got drinking water at perfect temperature, dual purpose. Truckers love anything that does 2 jobs. But even the best heating setup is worthless if you're parked in the wrong spot. And where you park during a cold shutdown, that's a chess game most four-wheelers never think about. Truck stops with buildings on 3 sides create wind shadows. You want the spot tucked against the building, not the one exposed to open highway. Wind chill isn't just a number on the Weather Channel. At -10 with a 25-mile-per-hour wind, your cab's exposed side drops to an effective -35. That's the difference between uncomfortable and dangerous. Experienced drivers back into spots so the sleeper faces the building wall. The cab nose takes the wind. The engine block, hundreds of pounds of metal that holds residual heat for hours after shutdown, acts as a thermal barrier between you and the worst of it. Smart? Absolutely. Now here's the trick nobody teaches in CDL school. Park next to other trucks. A row of idling rigs creates a microclimate. The combined engine heat from neighboring trucks can raise the ambient temperature in a tight truck stop row by 5 to 10 degrees. You're borrowing heat from every driver who's running their engine while you save your fuel. Call it freeloading, call it smart, either way, it works. Here's the thing about surviving a freezing night in a truck cab. Most people think it's about one piece of gear, one heater, one blanket. But veteran truckers know it's never just one thing. It's layers. And I don't just mean blankets. It's eating right before bed. Experienced drivers eat fatty foods 30 to 60 minutes before sleeping. Peanut butter, cheese, beef jerky. Digesting fat generates more body heat than carbs or protein. It's called thermogenesis. Your digestive system works harder to break down those fats, and that extra effort produces internal warmth that peaks around 2 to 3 a.m., exactly when you need it most. Military survival training teaches this. Arctic expeditions use it. And now it's standard knowledge in trucker forums online. A $3 jar of peanut butter is basically a metabolic space heater that fits in your side cabinet. And then there's the clothing. The rookie mistake is wearing heavy clothes to bed. Seems logical. It's cold, put on more layers. Wrong. Your sleeping bag works by trapping body heat. Thick clothes compress the bag's insulation and actually reduce its effectiveness. Smart drivers wear one thin, moisture-wicking base layer, merino wool or synthetic. That's it. Let the bag do its job. But they keep heavy clothes right next to them inside the sleeping bag, pre-warmed and ready, because if you need to jump out at 3 a.m. for a dead man's check or an engine start, stepping into frozen jeans and ice-cold boots is its own kind of emergency. Now here's what nobody tells you about cold nights in a cab. Sometimes the most effective survival system isn't gear at all, it's other truckers. During dangerous cold shutdowns, when highways close and truck stops fill up, drivers who've never met start looking out for each other, knocking on cabs to check if someone's okay, sharing engine heat by running one truck's heater through connected window hoses, passing out hot coffee at 4 a.m. In January 2022, truckers were stranded for days on I-95 in Virginia during a massive storm. Stuck drivers shared food, fuel, and blankets with people trapped in cars around them. Regular people were told to ask truckers for help because they carry emergency supplies. These drivers became a survival network for total strangers on one of the worst nights anyone on that highway had ever seen. Long-haul trucking forums have developed what they call cold call networks. Drivers in the same truck stop exchange phone numbers during shutdowns. If it drops below -20, someone texts at 2 a.m., a simple "you good" message that takes 3 seconds to send and might save a life. Some companies have started equipping cabs with carbon monoxide detectors and temperature alarms that alert dispatch if a sleeper cab drops below 40 degrees. Technology catching up to what the road already taught these drivers years ago. So, what have we learned? Surviving a freezing night in a truck cab isn't about one magic heater or one fancy blanket. It's foam insulation and reflective covers and moisture management. It's bunk heaters backed up by 12-volt blankets backed up by hot water bottles. It's parking strategy and fatty food and 3 a.m. alarm checks. It's base layers and air gaps and looking out for the guy parked next to you. Every single night, 250,000 Americans climb into metal boxes on frozen highways and fall asleep trusting that their combination of gear, knowledge, and community will keep them alive until morning. And every morning, they wake up, start their engines, and drive the freight that keeps this country running. That's not just survival.